Welcome to Sissygram Spicy Story channel. If you like my voice, then hit the like button and do subscribe our channel for regular updates. Today I come up with whole new content of story. So, now let's start the story. The day began like any other, but I had no way of knowing it would end in the most shocking and unexpected way. Ever since my dad remarried, I always felt that something seemed a little off in our house. My stepmom, Alina, was young and beautiful, but there was an unexplainable tension between us. At first, I convinced myself that it was just because I missed my real mom. However, as time went by, that uneasy feeling grew stronger, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. One evening, when my dad had to leave for a work trip, it was just Alina and me alone in the house. I didn't think much of it, planning to stay in my room and keep to myself. Maybe watch a movie or two. But as the night wore on, I started hearing strange noises from the living room. Initially, I thought it was just the TV or the wind, but the sounds persisted, and they didn't seem random. Curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to investigate. I crept downstairs quietly, careful not to make a sound. As I reached the bottom of the staircase, I peeked around the corner and froze. Alina was sitting on the couch, but she wasn't alone. There was a man with her, someone I didn't recognize. They were sitting far too close, their bodies pressed together in a way that made my stomach churn. My heart raced as I stood there, unsure whether to confront them or leave. Then it got worse. I watched as Alina leaned in, whispering something in the man's ear that made him smile, a smile I'd seen before and recognized all too well. My thoughts spiraled. How could this be happening? How could she do this to my dad? Anger bubbled inside me, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I was frozen, unable to look away. Then, Alina kissed him. Not a quick peck, but a long, deep kiss that made my blood boil. I wanted to scream, shout, or do something to stop what I was witnessing, but I felt paralyzed. My fists clenched as I tried to process it all. Who was this man? How could she betray my father like this? The kiss grew more passionate, and I couldn't watch any longer. Thank you for sticking with me until of this story. If you enjoyed it, please consider supporting us by liking this story or subscribing our channel. Okay, let's continue. I backed away quietly and hurried back to my room, my mind racing. Should I confront Alina? Should I tell my dad? My hands trembled as I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to calm down. Sleep was impossible that night. The image of them together replayed over and over in my mind. The next morning, I avoided Alina at all costs. I couldn't even meet her gaze. Every time she smiled at me or asked how my night had been, I felt a wave of nausea. How could she act so normal, like nothing had happened? Eventually, I convinced myself that it wasn't my place to get involved. I decided to let it go, reasoning that their relationship wasn't my responsibility. But fate had other plans. A few days later, I saw Alina sneaking out of the house late at night. Something snapped inside me, and I knew I had to find out what was going on. I followed her. She met the same man again, this time at a hotel across town. My heart sank as I watched them embrace in the parking lot. It wasn't just a kiss this time. They quickly disappeared inside the building. I knew then that I couldn't stay silent anymore. Although I wanted to call my dad immediately, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I decided to confront Alina directly. The next morning, once my dad had left for work, I cornered her in the kitchen. "I know what you've been doing," I said, my voice shaking with anger. Her eyes widened in shock. "What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to play innocent. "Don't lie to me," I snapped. I saw you with that man. How could you do this to Dad?" For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, she sighed and looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "It's not what you think," she finally said. "Really?" I shot back, because it looked pretty clear to me. She hesitated, searching for words. But I cut her off. "Just tell me the truth," I demanded. Alina looked down, guilt written all over her face. "You don't understand," she murmured. "Things between your dad and me, they're complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, my anger flaring again. "That doesn't give you the right to cheat on him." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a fleeting moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, but the betrayal was still too raw. "You have to tell him," I said firmly. "If you don't, I will." She nodded slowly, wiping away her tears. "I know," she whispered. "I know I've messed up. I just don't know how to fix it." "That's your problem," I replied coldly. "But if you don't come clean, I will." I gave her a few days to confess, but she never did. Instead, she pretended like everything was fine, as though she hadn't completely destroyed our family. I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, after dinner, I pulled my dad aside and told him everything. At first, he didn't believe me. The disbelief in his eyes was painful to see. But when I showed him the photos ID taken of Alina and the man at the hotel, there was no denying it. His face fell, and I could see his heartbreak unfold in real time. That night, he confronted Alina, and the argument that followed was explosive. Even from my room, I could hear their shouts echoing through the house. It was gut-wrenching, but I knew it had to happen. Alina had to face the consequences of her actions. In the end, my dad kicked her out of the house. The process was messy and painful, but the trust had been broken beyond repair. Our family was shattered, yet, in some strange way, I felt a sense of relief. The truth was finally out. As difficult as it was, I knew I had done the right thing. Looking back, catching my stepmom in the act changed everything. It marked the end of my family as I knew it, but it also marked a new beginning for my dad and me together. We began to rebuild our lives, one step at a time, and in the end, that's what mattered most. This is where the story wraps up. Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you soon. See you next time.